Hi everyone, today we will be dividing decimals for a quick review. Before we jump right into it, I do want to help you all understand a few things, um, divisor, dividend, and quotient. Because a lot of times teachers, professors, tutors will ask you, okay, what is the quotient? What is the divisor? What is the dividend? The dividend is the number that's being divided. The divisor is the number that's doing the divising, and the quotient is the simplified result, okay, the solution. Another area students may get a little confused is going from 15 divided by 3 and putting the numbers into this form here. Where does the 15 go? Where does the 3 go? Okay, so let's try and understand that. So we know the dividend is the number that's getting divided, and that should go on the inside. Usually it's the bigger number. Not always. Not always. The divisor is the number that's doing the dividing. So 15 is going to be divided by. So if it's divided by 3, 3 is the divisor. And it's equal to 3, so we know that that's the quotient. The quotient always goes on top. So let's just go ahead and write that out. Okay. Now, a key step when it comes to dividing decimals is the decimal, obviously, and when you have to move it and when you do not have to move the decimal. So I'm going to repeat this, but with two different fraction bars because we have two different types. Even though we have pretty much the same numbers, the decimals are in different places, so each problem is going to have a different process. Um, 1.5 divided by 3. The divisor cannot have a decimal. Okay, the decimal has to be moved. This divisor is a whole number already, so we don't have to do any moving of any decimals because you're allowed to have decimals in your dividend. That is perfectly fine. And obviously your quotient will have decimals as well. So all you do is simply move your decimal right on up. But for this problem here, my divisor does have a decimal. Okay, I have zero point 0.3 and I have 1.5. Zero point 0.3 has to become a whole number. How do I get this 0.3 to become a whole number? I'm just going to move it until it's a whole number. So I just literally moved it to the right one time and I'm going to literally do the same thing here. Move it. Now, you have to always move it the same amount of spaces. If I move this one to the right once, I have to move this one to the right once, okay? You have to keep things balanced with math. For dividing, math in general, but especially when dividing, you have to stay very organized. You have to stay very neat. So I'm just going to rewrite this because it's so easy to make mistakes with math. We don't want to accidentally make a decimal place mistake. So this became a whole number. So I'm just going to rewrite this as 3. And then I have 15 as a whole number. However, I do want to keep my decimal and bring it up because sometimes we do need to add a few zeros to finish off the dividing process. So I like to move my decimal up just in case. And if I don't need it, it's perfectly fine. But sometimes you do. So to be safe, just move it. Place it there and move it right on up, okay? So now let's get into the actual dividing. So I have 12.5 divided by 5. So this number is doing the dividing. It's going to go on the outside. This number is being divided, so on the inside. My divisor does not have a decimal, so all I have to do is move my decimal right on up and be very organized with where I'm placing my numbers inside of my quotient, okay? So 5 goes into 1 0 times. So the 0, which I'm not going to write because it's unnecessary, would go above the 1. 5 goes into 12 2 times, and you always place the number on top of the last number that you divided. 12, 2 is the last number, so I'm going to place it right up here. 5 into 12 twice. Be very organized, okay? 5 times 2 is 10. You subtract the two numbers, and you get 2. I'm going to ignore my decimal. You do not need to use the decimal in the dividing process besides bringing it straight up here. Bring down my 5. 5 into 25, 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. And I have 0. So once I've finished bringing all my numbers down, and I have a remainder of 0, I know that I am done. So my answer here is 2.5. 125 divided by 0.2. Uh-oh, my divisor has a decimal. I need to move it to the right once. This does not have a decimal, so I'm going to place one right here because every whole number actually does have a decimal. We just don't put it there. So I'll put my decimal that once was invisible. I moved this one to the right once, so I'm going to move this one to the right once. Here's my new decimal, but I have a gap here. I always fill up my gaps with zeros. I don't like this, how I have 4 different decimals. I want to like for sure know where my decimal is. So I just leave my outside as a whole number. My inside is 1250 now, 1250. And like I said on this slide over here, how I kept this decimal, I'm going to keep my decimal. I may or may not need it, but it's better safe than sorry. 2 into 12, 6. 2 times 6, 12. Subtract the two numbers, 0. Bring down the 5. 2 into 5, twice. 2 times 2, 4. Subtract the numbers, 1. Bring down the 0. 2 into 10, 5. 2 times 5, 10. 0. I have no other numbers to bring down. My remainder is a 0. Then I know I am done. I did not need my decimal here, but it's okay. It's okay. 625. Now we have 986 divided by 1.8. I went ahead and already put the whole decimal moving situation here. 1.8, I moved this decimal over to the right once. I had 986. Here was my decimal. I moved it and I added my 0 in for my filler. So I'm going to go ahead and just rewrite it so it makes more sense. And I most likely am going to need more space. So I'm going to write it up here. 18 into 9,860. And just like in the last video or the last problem, I'm going to keep my decimal there and bring it on up just in case. Now, I'm going to be multiplying by 18 often. I just want you all to know that you should not feel shame by having to do your multiplication on the side, okay? Do not be embarrassed by that. Do not feel bad. You will see your teachers and professors and tutors doing it all the time. Don't feel bad. 18 into 98. I'm going to try 5. What is 18 times 5, or 8 times 5? 40. Carry my 4. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 4 is 9. 90. I have 98. 90 is not larger, and if I add another 18, it's going to be too big. So I know for sure 5 should be good. What is 18 times 5? Well, we just said it was 90. And I'm going to subtract the 2 and get 8. And I'm going to bring down this 6. Well, look, 90, after I multiplied by 5 and 18. Once I multiplied 18 and 5, I got 90. 90 is going to be a little bit too big, so I'm going to go ahead and guess that it is 18 times 4 to reach the 86. 8 times 4 is 32. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7. Subtract the two numbers. 6 minus 2 is 4. 8 minus 7 is 1. Bring down my 0. I did forget to put my 4 that I multiplied. Let me place that real quick. From the 86. 18 times 4 was 72. Subtracted it, got 14. Brought down my 0. 18 into 140. That's bigger. I'm going to go ahead and guess 8. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 1 is 8. Plus 6 is 14. That's too big. It goes over my limit. So it can't be 8. Let's try 7. 8 times 7 is 56. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 5 is 12. So it worked. 140 minus 126. I'm going to have to borrow from this 4. 10 minus 6 is 4. 3 minus 2 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. I've brought down all my numbers, but I have a remainder, so I'm going to need another 0. 18 into 140. Look, we already did that. We already said it was 7. So let me put my 7. 18 times 7, we know is 126. Right, we did it over here already. 126. Subtract them, and you're going to get 14 again. I'm going to bring down another 0. And look, it's going to repeat itself over and over and over and over and over again for an infinite amount of times. So instead of writing 547.77777 and a million thousand more sevens, we are just going to go ahead and say it is for 547.7 with a bar above this 7 here to show that it is repeating. So when you see this answer and see that 7 has a bar above it, you know it's just going to constantly repeat an infinite amount of times. Okay? And that is pretty much it. I do want to show you all how to check your work real quick. We'll do a simpler problem. Let's do 12.5 divided by 5. So we should know that division and multiplication are opposites of each other. They cancel each other out. They undo each other. So what I can do is 5, the divisor, times the quotient, 2.5. And I should get, my answer should be 12.5. And if it is, then I did this correctly. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. And if you remember from my multiplying decimals video, you're going to add up the amount of places you have after your decimal. And there's only one decimal with one place after it. So I'm going to have one place after my decimal in my answer, 12.5. And it checked out. That is a way to check your work. So I do suggest doing that with decimals especially when you're first starting, but even later on in life as well. It's always great to check your work. And that is that.